Gold and crude oil, both markets came down ahead of the weekend and giving us lower price levels. And the question, can we expect more to the downside, or is this the best opportunity to enter the market? Let's have a closer look. Stick with me and we will see. Yeah, it seems to be quite tough. Recently we have a really strong market to the upside in nearly all commodities, whatever you're checking, the precious metals, the energy prices, and some more. What can we expect now? Is this a good opportunity to enter the market, and can we expect even more to the upside, or should this be the end of the bull market? We will see that in a different perspective on different markets. So let's see what we have here. Before we start, let me thank you for all the comments and all your wishes on markets or stocks. This video is on commodities only, so if you wish for some stocks, please check out next week in English, or maybe the German speaking video I did this weekend. So maybe this is something you might follow as well. If not, you can wait for next week and wish in English, of course, for other stocks or other markets as well. Please use the comments and rate other comments so that I can see what is most important for you. If time is tight, I have to pick some of these. So let's start with gold and see what we have here. And I can understand that many people are thinking, why do we think about charts? Here in this case, this is gold against US dollar. Why do we check charts? Because currently the market is driven by the Ukraine crisis or war, and by the situation with all the sanctions and other things. This is not normal. So how can charts help us? First of all, let's make clear that the chart is just the actual doing of all the market participants. So this is not what the market should do, or maybe be rational or whatever. This is what the market participants are actually doing and how they see as a whole what the market is doing currently. So this is the most precious information we have, because this is not something what ought to be done, but it is something like what is or have been done so far. So we can deduct something what the market participants are normally doing as a follow-up after an action. And is this possible to see here in this current chart? Because the situation is really difficult. We never had the war situation here with the Ukrainian before, and these strong sanctions against Russia. So this is a completely different situation. Yes, specifically it is different from all the others we had before. On the other side, always we have really specific situations. The financial crisis, for example, the oil crisis in the last century, the wars in the last centuries, 9/11, for example. These are all really specific situations. Always something, yeah, but this is completely different. Yes, but the reaction of the market participants is more or less always the same. So we can see the same pattern of behavior here in the current market situation. So there's not a big difference from what we can expect normally. So what can we see here in the current chart? Let's start with the 4-hourly chart, just to name the price setback here we've seen ahead of the weekend. It is not a really strong one, but the market came down $100 roughly here, and a little bit more than $100. And the question is now, is the resistance we have from our high in summer 2020, is this really a resistance and the market is kept from going further to the north, or is this just a chance to re-enter the market and to buy again? To be honest, I normally think that the market should overshoot a little bit. This would be the normal reaction. So what I expect here is that the market is not finished with the bull side currently. Even if you are bearish on the big picture, you still see my box here. I told you, I guess last week or recently, normally I would expect something like this, and the market to come down here into this area here. But now we have a new price level here. So if we want to draw this again, we have a price level which is just here. So even if a setback is coming, I would expect something around 1700 or maybe 1600 currently, if the market is doing something like a typical ABC pattern. This is really typical. This is a sideways correction. The name is of course given because the movement is more or less moving to the side, of course in the end at the lower point here, but it is more or less a sideways correction in this case. Is this the most the most important picture we can expect here, or is there a chance for a continued bull market? Yes, there is a chance for this bull market, as long as the market is coming down in a corrective way, which might be something like an ABC pattern, like this one here, and the market is re-breaking these levels here. Or alternatively, if the market is not doing an ABC but something back and forth, sometimes the correction pattern looks like this. You can also expect a continuation to the upside when the market is breaking through these levels here. So you should have a closer look in the next few days whether we have something like a corrective pattern here. This indicates that we have a good chance that we have a continuation, at least higher than this level, and maybe even way higher than this level. So this is something, if you are a long-term holder of gold, the current situation is not giving us any bad indication. And if you're a really long-term holder of physical gold, for example, even if you get something like this, which is still possible, I would expect something with higher prices in the aftermath. So it is not that anything up to a price level here is harming the bullish mood of gold. I'm not absolutely sure this will happen because the market came up strongly. The last few weeks, I was preferring this picture because the overall pattern here is really corrective. You can see it here. This is not giving me a good mood to buy the market. So to be honest, I missed this opportunity to be in the market, at least here in this big picture. There were some on the smaller time frame, some chances to enter. So we had some smaller long positions here on a trading perspective and closed the positions in between. But the overall picture was not looking very nice. However, as long as we are staying clear of these setbacks here, this one for example, this one here, and don't have any overlapping, maybe the market is coming around this level, not necessarily where this support level is. It is not absolutely important that it's exactly the same level, but if the market is coming around these levels here in a corrective perspective, I would definitely try to re-enter the market on the bull side. Maybe when reaching this level here, some people are just buying at these levels. We are not doing this. We recommend normally that if the market is reaching this level, for example, let me just give you an idea how it may look. Maybe it looks like this. It's not a promise that this will come like I've drawn here, but just have the idea that the market could come down in a typical fashion in an ABC pattern. We normally enter the bull side here with when breaking these levels here, or in case the market has a turning point, for example, with the support levels here, roughly around 1920, a little bit higher, 1930 maybe, around these levels. We have a closer look whether the market is giving us a strong buying movement here and a weak selling movement, which is also the same pattern like this here on a lower time scale. So if you wish, you can of course trade these on several different time frames. Even on a 15-minute chart, you see something like this very often. If you see something like this, and this seems to be something like this, you can expect something following the first movement here. Unfortunately, this is not giving us an indication, okay, from now we can expect doubling in prices. It is more or less, most of the time, take the first part, take it at the second part, and this is quite typical. Why is it quite typical? Because most pattern we have, if you have a first strong movement and a setback, you get a third one maybe a fourth and a fifth one. But even if this is only a zigzag, which is an ABC pattern, if you have a first one, a setback, you have the second one here. And the good news is the chance that this is the third wave compared to the first wave, you can see it here, is roughly the same length. It can be a little bit less, it can be more than this, but you can estimate, it is quite obvious that 100% is a good chance. And this is only for a zigzag. Of course, if this is an impulsive move, you have the same thing, but then the chances are that it's even way longer than 100%. So it seems for us quite useful to at least expect the same like this here again, with chances for more. If you want to keep the position, if you want to just pile up some positions here, you can just keep it through this level here. If you want to take profits here or partly take profits, maybe half of the position, and being happy, oh, this one was the first move, lovely, that's also okay. We typically take profits here and try to re-enter after the next setback, but this is something you can, of course, do on your own way, keeping the position. But when reaching this one-on-one projection here, the 100% projection, you can trail your stop to the initial entry so that you can say, okay, I don't have any risk anymore. If the market is continuing, perfect. If the market is turning around, no problem at all. I just lose a little bit on the book profits, but no money on my account, for example. So the current situation, I think, is giving us an opportunity, maybe that the market is still in the need to continue a little bit lower, like we've seen before, or currently, before the weekend. However, I see that we have a good chance that as long as this is corrective, like back and forth, or like an ABC pattern like we've seen here, both is giving us an intermediate high to enter the bull market, or here an intermediate high to enter the bull market, or choose a lower time frame for hourly, 15-minute, whatever you prefer, to do exactly the same. So I think we have a good chance that this is still not over. We see something continuing to the upside. Of course, we should keep in mind this can happen. So if you don't want to keep the position until this, you need some tight stops. We as traders normally have tight stops. So if we trade something like this, the stop would be below this point, or if you want to have aggressive one, a little bit around here. So it is really a small loss you can accept or need to accept. And this is the minimum profit you could expect. So you could see the risk-reward ratio here on the minimum idea is quite good. And if the market is continuing, it's even better. So if the market is accidentally coming down, why ever? We don't know the reasons why this may happen, but if this is happening, I don't have to sit and wait until the market comes up many weeks or months later. If you want to sit at the sideline and say, yeah, no problem, the market will at the end come up anyway, so it's absolutely okay, but you should keep in mind this still can happen. I think the chances for this are a little bit lower than before, but they are still there. Currently, I would focus on buying the market as long as the market is moving down in a corrective manner. If the market is not going in a corrective way, if the market is moving strongly and only shaky to the upside, I definitely would pick some short trades here, at least for this part. Exactly the same idea, first part fast, this part fast, and only a small amount of risk and a high amount of profit if this occurs like this. So I think we have a good opportunity currently in gold. I would prefer to re-enter on the bull side in case the market is showing me something like this or an ABC pattern. We may have a closer look around these levels, around 1920 US dollar, for example, to enter around here, or even better, which I prefer normally, at the intermediate highs here. So this is my idea on gold. Switching to silver, it's roughly the same. You may have in mind that I always thought about seeing the market has a good chance to go below 20, and it is still valid. So this kind of a bull flag. Why bull flag? Because you have this strong pole to the upside, you have this movement possibly as a flag, and this leads to continuation later. So this is really typical chart technical movement. And is this something we definitely will see? No, not definitely, of course. It is possible that the market is already in the bull market and we just had something like a sideways movement here as well. This sometimes happens. Also in this case, this is possible. So for silver, it's roughly the same like for gold. As long as we see some corrective pattern, best would be no overlapping with these corrective patterns here before. If we see something like this, I would also try to buy this market here on that part. It would be really typical. Currently, you see that the market is a little bit deteriorated. We don't see some clear picture currently. So what I would love to see is something like this, because this pattern looks quite familiar to the normal pattern, and what the people normally like to do then is to re-enter the position here or when the market is coming down. So the raw idea is roughly the same. We still have a chance that the market is coming down a little bit lower here. However, the current market situation is not giving us the need to sell short the market. It is more like watching what this next movement here will be, and if this is an ABC or shaky movement here, a corrective wave, then we can try to continue here to the bull market. So that's the precious metals. Before going to the energy markets, we had some other precious metals you wished for. At least some of these were Palladium here, and you could see this is a completely different picture. I love this picture very, very much, because you can see from this point here, which is the December last year, this is that point here, we've seen something which looks more or less like this. And this is something we call an impulse move. This is exactly what we've seen here, or let's say like we've seen here. The fifth wave is quite long, but this can happen. This is not really untypical. We can go also to the commodity market here if you like. You can see that sometimes the fifth wave compared to the third wave, for example, is even longer, even twice as long. It's not super typical, but it is absolutely possible. Same length. So third or fifth compared to the third, same length or even double. It is possible. So in this case, it is maybe the rare case that this one, or let's take this one here. We can measure this. This is the third wave. And we can see it is roughly 2 times as long as this one. It is possible. It's not super typical, but it can happen. And in this case, it seems to be the situation. And of course, this movement does not look in any way corrective to me. So what I would expect next is a setback. And this setback should be and could be in a corrective manner. Corrective could be something like a movement like this, or alternatively an ABC. And some people may say, yeah, but this is exactly what we get so far. So is this the complete corrective pattern already? It can be by pattern, but it's not super typical by time. So normally we use some slope indicator to just estimate where this end of this corrective pattern should be. And if you see, this is the strong movement here, and the same slope here to the downside would lead us to exactly the same slope, but this should be the corrective pattern. So I would normally expect that the market needs to go somewhere in this box, a little bit above 38, a little bit below 68, 61.8 Fibonacci retracements, somewhere in this box, in a corrective manner. So I would like to see something like this. However, this one looks definitely strong. If we have some ABC pattern in the near future, then I would think that Palladium has a good chance to continue this up move. This is a really nice pattern to the upside, but I would wait a little bit longer for the corrective pattern. I would expect that the market here is moving up somewhere, maybe even a little bit higher than this one, and coming down here just to give us a little bit more time, which is typical for a pattern like this. What is Platinum doing? Platinum is roughly in the same, moving in the same way. You could see the strong movement to the upside. However, you don't see the very typical 5-wave move here because of what we've seen here. This looks a little bit weird in my eyes. So if I have to pick one of those, I would choose Palladium because this picture is not super clear. Currently, I don't have a wish to buy anyway because the last movement was to the downside. And in case the next movement is shaky to the upside, I would like to sell short anyway, which is absolutely okay because a setback, you may remember from the last chart, into this area here would be really typical anyway. So Platinum is nothing I want to buy currently. Of course, there's a chance the market is doing something really strong to the upside. But if the market is doing something like this, I just can wait for a corrective pattern setback to re-enter and to trade the follow-up anyway. So you can see, I don't know what is coming next, but what I can see is if this is shaky, I would sell short. If this is strong to the upside and shaky to the downside, or ABC to the downside, I would re-enter at least for the same amount here, again here, and then we can see what we get here at these levels, depending on whether the price levels are exactly like I've drawn, or maybe a little bit higher or lower, then we can decide. But we can do this in the future together. Let's have a closer look to copper. And copper is also running up. You can see this here on a daily chart. Let me switch here to the daily chart. But you can see that the price movement here on the daily chart is exactly not what I would expect the strong market direction is. So what I see here is the corrective pattern to the downside, somehow a really corrective pattern to the upside. And this would normally lead to some levels here in a way of an ABC pattern here, or in case this might be a little bit complicated, this is an ending diagonal, which is something at the very end of a trend market. Even then I would expect that the market is going here. So what I would expect for the near future is a setback around $4 here in this case. This is my preferred picture on this chart. So I would not think of a buying opportunity on this big picture. On a lower time scale, even on a 15-minute or a lower time scale here, you can see this is also not looking really encouraging for the bull side. So I would stick with the short selling here in this case as well. Next one is the energy market. And the energy market, of course, is really driven by the current crisis and the situation there. And you can see that we had a really strong movement to the upside, $130 per barrel here with crude oil in the US, CL or WTI, whatever you like. CL or QM are the futures, and WTI, depending on your country and what your trading instruments are, sometimes CFDs or other contracts, they are similar to this chart here as well. And you could see that we strongly moved to the upside, and I have a blue idea what may happen next. And why now? Because you can see this is the first part of the up move, and you can see 100%. We nearly reached 100%. And you may have in mind that very often these 100%, depending on whatever you're looking at, is something the market has a good chance to turn around these levels. Please don't read this like here's the highest level, so this is the highest probability. No, that's not the case. It is the area below that. This means the center of this is a little bit below 100%. So normally you would expect the 50-50 chance is a little bit below 100%. And if you see this here on this chart, you can see it's a little bit below. So it's really typical what we've seen here so far. This movement we had here from end of November last year to now is absolutely in sync with these probabilities. And this is absolutely not corrective pattern-like. It is a strong movement. And after a strong movement, we need a breather, a halt. And now it is really interesting how this will develop. Will this become an ABC pattern, or alternatively something like a shaky wave? You can definitely expect that the market will continue to the upside in the aftermath. Keep in mind, use some of these intermediate highs here, or the same with an ABC pattern, for example, for re-entering the market, or checking this on the lower time frame here as well. If you have a closer look, for example, in the intraday chart, you could see that currently the market is quite strong to the upside, to the downside. And what I definitely would prefer is something like a corrective pattern to the upside and a continuation here again. And this, what I've drawn here, is exactly what we've seen here. Maybe the size is a little bit wrong, what I've drawn here. But roughly what we've seen here is the ABC pattern, what I've drawn here. So it should not surprise us if the market is going to 100 or even below in the near future, in the next few weeks, maybe taking less time than I've drawn here, but coming down in the next weeks, let's say many days or few weeks, something like this, I would not be surprised. Really important is that the center part here is corrective. It is definitely a killer if the market is doing like this. And many people are saying, yeah, but that's exactly the point. In this case, I should enter the market here. Yes, I can understand this, but that's not a good trading idea. You should never, because of, I believe this will happen, I do this. Enter the market after you've seen some kind of evidence, or let's say high probability that the market is strong on the upside. Wait for the next setback and then enter the market. Don't try to find the turning points, the pivots in the market. Just wait for the market to do the first step and then jump into it. Currently, I think it's not a good opportunity to just by chance buy the market. The problem is you might be right, but it might be really cost intense if you are wrong. And it's not necessarily that the market needs to plunge like this to 70. It might be cost intensive and killing your margin on your account, maybe if you're entering the market here or that level, because I expect the market is turning up. You can't trade this position well because of the difficulties of the margin, and crude oil has a high margin currently because of the big moves we've seen here. So I would strongly recommend wait for a turn in the market, wait for the setback, and then trade this situation. You may miss some kind of movements, but it is cheaper and it is less risk if you do so. Switching to natural gas, we have nearly the same situation. Also here, natural gas, you could see that the market came down quite strongly, and you can see that the market is pushing into this most favorite corrective pattern area. To be honest, I would prefer some more structure in an ABC pattern here. I'm missing this. So I think that we are not trading short this market because we don't have any good break levels here or triggers for the short selling. This would be completely different if we would have something like an A, B, C. In this case, we would have this, and we could easily trade the continuation here. But this movement is more or less the same like this one. So I'm absolutely not sure what I should do. I prefer a little bit, just by seeing the internal structure of this move compared to this move, I would say this is more corrective than this one. So I prefer the down movement. However, this is currently not giving me good entry points on this bigger scale here. I can try, of course, to sell short the market whenever the market is doing something strong to the downside and corrective to the upside. Sometimes you can see this in internal structure, and then you can trade this. If you see something like an ABC, strong movement before that, you can just trade the continuation here in this case. If you see something like this, I will do that. If I don't see this, I will skip this. So currently, I think the energy market is still in a breather, coming down a little bit. Some people are saying, yeah, but there's no reason because we have the crisis. Do you think they will have a negotiation and stop the fighting? To be honest, I don't have a clue. But I see what the market participants are doing, and then I'm reacting on what they are doing, not what I believe or what I think or somewhere in a newspaper was written. For me, the most important thing is what are the market participants are doing. And currently, they don't have a good clue what is coming because they are reacting not really strong in a corrective pattern. If they would do, I definitely would sell short the market. In this case, I will prefer to stay at the sideline. Only if the market is giving me something like this here, then we have a chance. Or you may have realized we sometimes have these warm bars, these blue bars here, which are also giving us trading opportunities when breaking these levels, that entering the market into the direction of the break. For example, this was to the upside, this was to the downside, this was to the downside. We trade something like this as well. I will tell you about this trading idea maybe in the near future. If you are following BORN-4-Trading, you have these trading ideas anyway, and you can trade these ideas, but you can see sometimes if the pattern is not giving us a good idea, other trading ideas may be suitable if you have a trading system, maybe like this, or maybe an own invented. So at the very end, let's have a closer look at the Bitcoins. Why the Bitcoins? They are not a commodity. Yes, they are a little bit more like a currency, but some people are thinking that Bitcoins are something similar like gold, something like to carry some value, because they are rare and they are limited, and thus you can expect that the price will be really stable and will rise in the future. Well, to be honest, stable is something which is not suitable for Bitcoins currently, or cryptocurrencies in general, but Bitcoins especially. So I think Bitcoins are still far away from being like gold. However, I think Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies in general will have a good chance in the future to be one of the most important maybe currency system or value carrying instrument. So I think it's worth to have a closer look, and some of you wished for this as well. You can see the last strong movement in the daily chart was a strong move to the downside, and from that point here we had something which is looking not convincing to me for the bull market. So I would estimate that this is a corrective pattern. Is this done already? Well, let's ask Fibonacci, is this typical already? We had some approach to reach the 38.2, but this was a one waver, not so much a three wave pattern, and it's too short. So to be honest, I would prefer something like this, so that we have a typical corrective pattern, something maybe like this, roughly. If the market is giving me something like this, I would have a perfect trigger for the short side, which may lead us below 20 or something around that, which is really surprising for many of us, of you maybe, or of us market participants. However, this is quite typical. This one is the same. This one was the same here. This one was the same. All of these setbacks, whichever you took here, went down nearly 90%. This looks a little bit weird because this is a logarithmic scale here, and this one also 90%, or at least way more than these 78. And if you see, for example, the last one here and this one, we are way above this level. But if the market is reaching 15,000, for example, this is just an example. It's not a promise now, but it would be really typical. We would reach levels like this, which is absolutely nothing bad. Of course, if you bought here, you don't like this. But from the chart technical perspective, from what the market participants in this market did here, 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 and maybe even before that, it is absolutely a typical behavior here in this market. And this one is an absolutely typical behavior of typical market participants in case the market is reaching this level. So currently, I don't think that this up movement is over. So I think we have some chance that the market will go there. However, I would not trade this time frame here. What I would trade is something like this. If you see something like this and an ABC pattern here, you can of course trade something like this here again. You can see you very often have this. And sometimes you have a strong movement to the downside and something shaky to the upside, but you don't see it in the market trigger the levels, then you cannot sell short, of course. Why? Because you did not trigger anyway. So currently, I would prefer to see the market here. On the way there, I need something here. Currently, I don't see it, so I would not trade this. But when the market is going here, this is still not a proof that the market is on the bull side again, because this pattern in general is too overlapping for me. So I'm really sorry, it was a really long video, but so many things we should talk about. So I hope this helps you a little bit for your own trading decisions and to build up your own trading ideas. And I'm crossing my fingers for your next trading for the next week, and looking forward to seeing you again. Don't miss the opportunity to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next ones. Please give me your ideas, what you want to see, and please vote other ideas, whether you like them, so that I can see which one is more important to you and which one is not so much, so that I can just pick the most important one for you. So have a good time. Seeing you soon. Bye-bye.